Today we talked about number conversions, and we discussed several different conversions: converting a decimal to a percent and a percent back to a decimal to a fraction when dealing with a terminating number like 3.2, a decimal to a fraction when dealing with a repeating number like 1/3 that we know is 0.333 repeating, a fraction to a percent, and a percent to a fraction. Our instructions for our worksheet tell us to write the percent as a fraction in simplest form. And so our percent here is 16%. And we know that 16% is 16% of 100 intuitively. And so we will write that in a fraction form by saying 16 over 100. That can then be reduced to 4 over 25 by dividing both 16 and 100 by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 100 divided by 4 is 25. That process holds true for all of these problems across the top. Second set of directions says to write each percent as a decimal. And in order to write a percent as a decimal, you simply take the decimal, which is currently at the end of the integer, and move it 2 units to the left. 1, 2. And so our new decimal number is 0.33 for 33%. The next section talks about writing each decimal as a percent. And our process for going from percent to decimal was to move 2 decimal places to the left. The opposite is true when writing a decimal to a percent. We simply take our number 0.17 and move 2 decimals to the right. That would make this 17%. When we write a fraction as a percent, we're basically saying 3 over 5 or 3 divided by 5. And so all we have to really do is divide 3 inside our radicand by 5. And since 5 doesn't go into 3 evenly, and we know that there's an invisible decimal point right after the 3, and anytime I have a decimal point inside the radicand, I want to have one just above it so that I don't forget that I'm dealing with a decimal answer. I need to add a 0 so that I can take 5 into an actual number. So 5 goes into 30 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30, and that leaves me with no remainder. So I know I don't have to continue to find out if there's any more numbers in my solution. So my solution is 0.60. But remember, we want to know what the percent is. So again, I need to move that decimal 2 places to the right, and my percentage would be 60%. The next question asks for us to write a decimal as a fraction. And for most students, they remember that when there's 1 digit after the decimal, that's the tenths place. And when there's 2 digits after the decimal, that's the hundredths place. But if you happen to forget that, you can also simply write 6 in the numerator, put a 1 down here in the denominator, and for each unit after the decimal point, you can add a 0. So as we discussed, this was 6 in the tenths position, so 6 tenths, or by following the shortcut, put 6 in the numerator, put a 1 down here, and there is 1 number after the decimal, so I will add 1 0. Still gets me to 6 tenths, and that could be simplified to 3 over 5. As we discussed also, anytime you have a repeating number, that fraction is created by taking the number in the numerator, the number after the decimal, and putting it in the numerator. And we simply put that number over 9. It's just one of those rules that we have to learn. If I have a repeating number, I take the number after the decimal, put it in the numerator, and put it over 9. If it needs to be simplified, you can simplify it down. Hopefully that should have given you enough strategies to be able to be successful on the rest of the worksheet. I did quite a few problems, and we will go over it in class.